Wow, look at Zach's haircut.
Should we bring that up?
Well, I asked Jill, she'll wear a hat? And Jill said, no, don't wear a hat. We got to talk about it.
I think Jill she'd rather make fun of you than...
Yeah.
He's channeling his inner Justin Bieber.
There you go. Okay.
So was this I don't actually know. I saw you show up at church with it, but there was a lot going on. This was an intentional choice, or?
I tried to cut my own hair.
Okay.
And
down in Arkansas?
No,
when we got back.
Oh.
And we were sitting at dinner, and he's sitting across from me, and I just find myself, I'm looking at him.
I have a hat on at dinner.
It didn't matter. It was so bad that I could tell with your hat on. He did have a hat on.
Covered up.
But I'm looking, like when he would turn to the side, there was this, I don't know if you were going for the like Euro mullet.
Yeah, I was. But Jill said, you're not trendy. You're a grown man. Like something to that effect.
Well, I mean,
like you're not like, she was chastising me for trying to cut a mullet. But yeah, I had a lot of gaps in it. It looked, it was bad. It was like really,
You've cut your own hair before, right?
No, I've never. I mean, I've tried to, and every time I have, this has been the result. So then Jill came in and said, we have to take all your hair off. Like there's no way to fix this other than just basically shave it.
Well, my grandpa's wisdom was always the difference between a good haircut and a bad haircut is 2 weeks.
It's 2 weeks. Yeah, this is
so give it a go. It'll grow back out.
But I mean, you do notice you're thinning on top, and well,
I mean, this could be your phase 1 of plugs because supposedly
that's true. You
have to cut it.
I may not know this. I mean, you may not know. You know what I'm saying? I got hair plugs, and you guys don't know about it, and I just went. But no, because I haven't gone away for an extended period of time to look. Yeah. So, but new haircut. I feel better. I feel a lot lighter.
You are a lot lighter.
Yeah. Well. That's because I'm on this health kick now where I've got this. So I started using a glucose monitor, and then there's an app.
There we go.
Yeah, Jill hates one. Have I talked about this on the podcast yet?
Oh,
you talked about your numbers a little bit.
I don't know if you've talked about it on here, but
I'm using this thing called Levels, and they're about to sponsor the Unashamed podcast, which I'm excited about. So if you want to try it, go to that podcast. I'll give you a code later to get a discount. But I monitor everything. I know what my body can handle now. It's been interesting. So we're trying to reverse our aging. You can't reverse your aging, but I'm trying to slow down the aging process so that I can. I mean, I have a 4-year-old daughter. I mean, it's a young man's game.
Yeah, you'll be how old? So you'll be how old when she graduates high school?
Well, I'm 47 now, so
okay, so you'll be 61 years old.
Yeah, I mean, I got to stay in the game.
Yeah,
I need to be active until I need to make sure that I'm active into my 80s. But my granddad was active until he was 89, and then he got COVID and died of COVID. But he was in great shape. Now, my mom's side of the family, that's where all the genetic defects are, so I've got to work on it because they didn't age well over there. But on the Dasher side, they age well, so I'm hoping that my genes are more Dasher. But we're in Mark 5. Oh, that's interesting because Mark 5 is kind of about healings, and we're getting into a lot of escaping death and whatnot. So I guess I could just put my faith in Jesus, and then that would just
that is one option.
That is
one way to go. It is almost the point of the entire text that we're going to be in, actually.
Yeah. You preached this passage.
I did.
So you are to be ready to just give us a dissertation.
It's funny how much time I spend working on sermons, how much emphasis I put on them, how I guess I expect I'm going to preach this thing. People are going to walk away. They're going to be talking about it. It's going to be quotable. I go back to the sermon. I guess it's been probably a year. I don't remember any of it. I'm looking through my notes. I'm like, oh my gosh, that was pretty good.
That was good
I don't remember saying that at all. And that is actually the point of a sermon, I've come to realize, is at the end of the day, it's not giving people a bunch of intellectual things to repeat. We're trying to cultivate an environment that points people to Jesus. So it moves heads, yes, but it moves hearts, and it stirs up something in a people that they may not be able to point to. You said this, but it just creates this atmosphere for people to pursue Jesus.
Well, most of the time they don't remember what you said, but if you say it enough, then they'll repeat it And
or want to seek out on their own and get into the word and study. That some of the greatest sermons that I've listened to, it's not been that, oh, that one line that they said changed me, but it intrigued me so much into the word that I wanted to dive deeper in. That's what you want.
Yeah. I've always been reluctant to accuse people of plagiarism. That's a big thing, like on the internet, is like, particularly with preachers, they'll preach and then they'll have a clip of the guy preaching, and then you'll have a clip of someone else preaching it before him, and it's like the same exact thing. And I'm always scared if I'm doing that, because I'm like, some of this stuff, like I've said it and I've studied it and I've read someone else who said it and I heard it and I forgot where I got this from.
It's usually me.
Huh? Well, we I'm gonna not get cynical. I could go down that rabbit hole with you, but no, like I would read like Francis Schaeffer, and then like and maybe I may be just ripping it right off the page, but I've said it so many times that here we are 20 years later from when I first. I don't remember where I got this from.
Well, none of us are the originator.
Yeah.
Of anything, really. Everything that you say, you study, you see, it's built upon someone else's work or time or effort, which ultimately, obviously, is built upon the only original creator thought.
The problem is when you're taking shortcuts, so you're not doing any thinking and work of your own, or you're intentionally holding up somebody else's work as your own to try to profit or to build a reputation.
And that is a real thing.
And that is a problem.
Like people do, which is crazy to me in the age of the internet. Like I'm like, they're going to find out.
Yeah.
Right. If I go rip off John Piper's sermon word for word, or who else, to keep it ecumenical, John Mark Comer, word for word, and I rip off their sermon, like, especially now with AI, they're going to figure that out. But
well, and it does change. So what's going on in churches? Like the reality is, and we say this to our church, if you just want a really good sermon, go listen to Tim Keller, one of his podcasts, one of his sermons that he did already, or Comer or John Piper, one of those kind of guys. Like they've already done it, and they probably did it better.
Yeah.
The point of the sermon is it sits as a part of this community who we're becoming, what we're doing, and what God's doing amongst us. And so it's not just, hey, get some good notes down. Like if you want, sure, take some notes, but that's ultimately not the aim of any of this.
Which actually, the sermon you preached about this was direct. You tied it to a little girl in our church body, Gracie, because she was going through a sickness, but I remember that being so powerful.
Yes. Yeah, we'll get back to that story maybe after we read it.
Well, somebody listened. Did you go back and listen to his sermon on this before we?
No, we were talking about
it before.
Okay, so you already.
And then when he mentioned that, I remembered that moment because.
So you did make it sticky.
A little bit.
Yeah,
I tried.
Okay.
You want me to read it?
Yeah, read it. Jill said I can't read the Bible anymore because she said that's not your gifting. But
what she did say, I will say, it's not because you're not able to read. It was couched in like your mind works too fast that your mouth can't catch up.
Yes, that's what it is.
So,
it's actually a sign of brilliance.
All right, we'll start in verse 21. And when Jesus had crossed again in the boat to the other side, a great crowd gathered about him, and he was beside the sea. Then came one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name. Seeing him, he fell at his feet and implored him earnestly, saying, "My little daughter is at the point of death. Come and lay your hands on her, so that she may be well and alive." And he went with him. And a great crowd followed him and thronged about him. And there was a woman who had a discharge of blood for 12 years, and who had suffered much under many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was no better, but rather grew worse. She had heard the reports about Jesus, and came up behind him in the crowd and touched his garment. For she said, "If I touch even his garments, I will be made well." And immediately the flow of blood dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her disease. And Jesus, perceiving in himself that power had gone out from him, immediately turned about in the crowd and said, "Who touched my garments?" And his disciples said to him, "You see the crowd pressing around you, and yet you say, 'Who touched me?'" And he looked around to see who had done it. But the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came in fear and trembling, and fell down before him and told him the truth. And he said to her, "Daughter, Your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease." While he was still speaking, there came from the ruler's house some who said, "Your daughter is dead. Why trouble the teacher any further?" But overhearing what they said, Jesus said to the ruler of the synagogue, "Do not fear, only believe." And he allowed no one to follow him except Peter and James and John, the brother of James. They came to the house of the ruler of the synagogue, and Jesus saw a commotion, people weeping and wailing loudly. And when he entered, he said to them, "Why are you making a commotion and weeping? The child's not dead, but sleeping." And they laughed at him. But he put them all outside and took the child's father and mother and those who were with him and went in where the child was. Taking her by the hand, he said to her, "Talitha cumi," which means, "Little girl, I say to you, arise." And immediately the girl got up and began walking, for she was 12 years of age. And they were immediately overcome with amazement. But he strictly charged them that no one should know this, and told them to give her something to eat.
That's a big boy miracle.
It's a lot.
You got miracles, then you got big boy
That's
miracles.
right.
When you raise them from the dead, that's quite the commanding presence. It's interesting though. I think that how this story unfolds. It's like did you use the phrase Mark and sandwich?
Mm-hmm.
Did you use it when you taught this passage?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's they're all throughout Mark, the way he arranges them. Basically, one story starts, it gets interrupted by another one, and then he comes back and completes it. So the beginning of this, the ruler comes, "My daughter's sick, she's dying, we don't know what to do." He kind of starts to go down that path, and then all of a sudden, boom, a lady in the crowd touches him, everyone's around him, he heals her, and then we're back at the original story at the end. And he's arranging these on purpose to make certain theological points.
Yeah.
Every time he does it. In this one, what it is in short is the ultimate point that he's saying to Jairus is, have faith, believe that I can do this. And then he inserts a story right in the middle that shows a woman of no name who displays enough faith to overcome social norms, to push through the crowd and simply touch him, believing, maybe if I get my hand on this guy, I can finally be healed. And so that shows Jairus and shows us what the nature of true faith then looks like.
Yeah, it's interesting that Jairus, in the beginning of this story, his sense of urgency. He's like, we got a crisis. My daughter's on her deathbed. Like, she's like, this has to happen now. And so he has a sense of urgency, which is kind of interesting. You think, well, that man, he really believed in Christ enough to have that urgency. But then when Christ moves toward his daughter, he gets distracted by something else, which is kind of like if you're Jairus, then what are you thinking? You're like, what are we stopping here for, man? Like, what? Like, dude, like I told you, this is urgent. We need a doctor. Like, it's like if you're going to the emergency room, you don't like stop off and get a cup of coffee or have a conversation with some rando on the street. No, you make your way as quickly as you possibly can to the emergency room because there's a crisis here.
Yeah, when we had Addie down in Chapel Hill, my wife pregnant, she comes home. She actually worked the day that she then gave birth that night.
Wow.
And she's on her way home, and we knew it was coming. Like, she had been having labor pains and contractions. And so she gets home, we're going through all this stuff, and we get in the car, we load up to leave. Ashley's brother comes over to watch Lucas. And so everything's ready. We got our bag, everything. We pull out, and I look at the gas tank, and it's completely empty.
Oh,
like,
wow.
Ashley, we don't have time to. So she's having contractions, and we have to stop pulling a gas station on the way to the hospital because we wouldn't have made it. But yeah, imagine he's like, my daughter is dying, and you're dealing with this lady.
Yeah.
Like, do you not understand, Jesus? Like, I need your help. Do it.
Well, I also find it interesting that he's a leader of the synagogue, this man. And that's not necessarily jiving with Jesus at this point. But when you think about your life, when there's an emergency, when there's something that wrecks and turns your world upside down, you're not thinking in that moment politically, if you will, or you're not thinking of positioning. I mean, he's going straight to Jesus, who he's heard of, that's doing this thing, even at a time when that could have been
Yeah,
He could have been looked down upon by the other leaders in the synagogue.
Well, you're going to see, you're actually going to see what's going to unfold here. You're going to see two healings, and both of them are Jesus. He's going to have an interaction, a physical interaction with people who are ceremonially unclean.
Yeah.
One is a dead corpse, and the other is a woman who's been bleeding for 12 years. And Jesus, both of those, he's like disregarding the ceremonial law. And I don't think you understand who it is that's here. And so you do see that interaction. I think that's a really good point. And I think because I would say this, our church, we have a lot of very sharp minds. We can get into a deep theological and political debate with the best of them. I enjoy that. I actually do. I don't do it enough, like a lot, like on this podcast, but trust me, I have opinions and they're very provocative.
Really?
And oh yeah, we can make people upset. But think about it though. Is incredible as your theological perspective is, and as deep as it is, or your political perspective, when you are at a crisis, that stuff does tend to go out of the. That's not what you're thinking about.
If I'm bleeding on the sidewalk and someone comes up with the means to help me, I'm not checking your theology, your eschatology, right. What do you think about? Just help me.
It's kind of like that Alistair Begg viral clip where he's talking about the thief on the cross. That's one of my favorite things ever.
Yeah.
And he's like talking about the guy gets to the pearly gates and St. Peter is like, why are you here? Like, how'd you get here? And the guy's like, what do you mean? And he's like, did you understand substitutionary penal atonement? Did you justification by works? And this starts going down all these core things that, did you understand you're saved by grace alone? And the guy goes, I don't know what you're talking about. He said, all I know is the guy on the middle cross told me to meet him here. And it's like, that's the basis, right? And I think that it's like, not that this other stuff doesn't matter, but that can easily become a distraction. This guy, what's interesting to him is that he wanted the immediate attention of Jesus. Jesus doesn't give him his immediate attention. He actually gets distracted by someone who's not of noble status, who actually Jesus doesn't even pursue her. She touches him, but there's an immediate healing for her.
Yeah.
So you have the immediate nature and the urgency of Jairus, and then you have the woman who's immediately healed, which is the inner part of the sandwich of what's going on here?
Well, so there's a broader context, and you alluded to it last week. Jesus is run out of town. That's how our last passage ended. They didn't want him there. He was messing up with their economy, and he was doing the casting out demons, doing this stuff. And so they run him off, and immediately the place where he goes, he's wanted, and he does powerful things. And so when I preached this, I threw out this idea, and it's funny, it ruffled some feathers a little bit, but as we talked about it, people understood it. I said, God goes where he's wanted.
That's exactly what I wrote down in my notes. I must have remembered that from your sermon.
She's doing the thing.
It's sticky.
I said, Jesus goes where he is needed and wanted.
Yeah. And so what were you thinking when you're
that's exactly what I was thinking. They kicked him out. He did this amazing thing. They didn't want him there. And he's like, okay, I'm going to go where I am wanted, where I am needed. And I will choose, Jesus's route is never happenstance. When the woman at the well, I talked about her briefly last week, but that wasn't the route you would take, but it was the route Jesus took, because there's no just, I might go about this way. There's no happenstance with Jesus.
Yeah.
Everywhere he goes is with purpose.
Yeah. Well, think of the contrast in these stories. Jesus is on a boat. The wind and the sea are raging, and he says, be still. The demons are in this man, and he commands them to get out. There's death and there's sickness, and he just says, no more. You're healed. Get up and walk. And yet to people who demand that he leave, he doesn't say, be quiet. I'm here. I'm going to do what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
He actually listens. He says, okay, if you don't want me here, I'm going to go back and be with those who I want. And I think that's what bothered some people, is when I said it like that, they're like, no, God is sovereign. God is in control. He doesn't bend his knee to the desires of men.
Yeah.
He does what he wants to do when he wants to do it.
Yeah, I think that's a misunderstanding of the word sovereignty. I think when people have that objection, what they're conflating is sovereignty with determinism. And what I mean by that is determinism, meaning that God is like almost like this fatalistic view that God is determining every single little thing that happens, and almost like a kind of atheist worldview, right? Where everything is wound up and everything is determined by a prior state of physical events. It's one of the problems, by the way, it's how postmodernism emerged, was that the philosophers are like, if everything's determined by physics, then we don't matter and we don't have any will. There's no why is there a call to make any decision? Like there is nothing. Nothing matters. And I don't think that's not what the word sovereignty means. Sovereignty is how God relates to his creation. God is over his creation. God is in control. God is all powerful. God is ruling. He's reigning. His sovereignty, this is something that an attribute of God that comes into being as he creates. So I think what's happening here is like, I mean, you do see a relational aspect of this. And I think that like the way that C.S. Lewis would put it, there's two kind of people in this world. There's those who say to God, thy will be done. And then there's those to whom God says, thy will be done. So when you get to Romans, for example, and the wrath of God is being poured out against people who suppress the truth by their wickedness, what is the wrath of God in Romans 1 and 2? It's
giving them to themselves.
They give them to it's God saying, okay, you do you. I mean, it's literally you do you. And so God does seem to respect that in people. And it's a bigger discussion, but I think it's clear.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at the contrast. The author's making this point. Like Jesus is commanding the sea and the winds, be still. He's commanding everything and they listen, but he allows people to rage and the Pharisees to come at him. Like he allows those things, and he will allow us to rebel, and to the point that we lay our lives and our wills and our desires down at his feet. But this is what you have to see. As soon as we do that, the God that we meet is one who's poised and ready to bring life and to bring healing.
Yeah.
It's not the God, I think the way I viewed God for so long was that he's always leaning towards wrath, ready to strike, ready to punish, ready to destroy. And Jesus kind of just helps us avoid that God. But the God that I've come to realize is a God who's actually poised to offer life. He's long-suffering, he's patient, and what he wants above all else is to pour out this healing and life back into the world.
Yeah, I've heard people say that in order for God to be God, he has to display his full range of wrath and mercy. And I just think that is insane, because God is God before he creates humans. In order to have wrath and mercy, there has to be sin.
Yeah.
Right? I can't pour my wrath out on something when there's no infraction. And I can't have mercy on you unless you've actually done something wrong. And so sin is a necessity for wrath and mercy. So to tie these two things to God's eternal nature in that way, I think is to put humans in charge, because what it essentially does is it says in order for God to be God, there has to be humans so that there can be sin, so that God can display his full range of wrath and mercy. And God was God before he creates.
Yeah.
He's the eternal God. And so I think we have to elevate our view of who this God is. And this is not to say that God doesn't have wrath, because he does. He clearly does. And he clearly displays mercy. But those are things that God does as he creates humans. And I think that what you see is you do see some relational aspect, which is why I think Peter says that we partake in the divine nature. We partake, we participate, we're part of it. It's like we're being invited into the dance with the Trinity. We're interacting with the inner life of God. And so everything that Jesus does is relational. Yeah. Everything does.
Which was probably the most convicting part of this whole passage for me. Is Jesus is going along. He's got a busy day. I mean, this guy's running up to him. He just got through casting out the demons into the pigs, and now he's with these crowds. This Jairus, this very important guy in the city, is running up to him. And yet Jesus allows himself to be interrupted right in the middle of that. And he doesn't say, why are you bothering me? I'm trying to, someone's dying over here. You can handle a few more years of bleeding. He allows himself to be touched. He slows down enough not to just heal her, but then to meet her and to speak to this woman who came up behind him. And I look at my own life and I'm not that interruptible.
Yeah.
I'm not that interruptible at all. There was a conference that I went to, and a guy told a story. He did this illustration one time at an event he was speaking at. He had a guy that sat outside of the venue where they were going, and he looked like a homeless guy. He was actually dressed up to look this way, but he sat out there, and the guy just watched as everyone coming in the conference just to see, is he going to interact with them? Are they going to give him any money? Like what is? And everyone's just in a hurry to get to their seats to listen to this message. And that became his illustration for the talk, is like, are we in such a hurry to get to the place that we need to be that we miss the people along the way that need us?
Man.
And I'm so guilty of that.
But isn't that the heart of God? That's the heart of our God. A God that, I mean, just think about this idea. A God that can be touched.
Yeah. And not just a God that can be touched, but a God that can be touched by someone that is unclean.
Yeah.
And the thing I noticed in this scripture is that twice they emphasize the pressing in and the amount of people. First, it's he's enthroned around people. And then when Jesus says, who is it that touched me? The disciples are, what do you mean? Everyone's touching you. There's people touching you all around. And when I think about that, I'm thinking of this woman who was bleeding for 12 years. 12 years. Not 12 days, not 12 months, 12 years. I did the math, and I actually want to show you that I did it by hand on my notebook.
Yeah.
I'm so afraid of ChatGPT and calculators and AI that I'm going to do my math by hand.
You're afraid of calculators?
I'm going overboard. I don't want my mind.
Scary.
Listen, I know. This is a whole side topic. We're not going to get on that, but I don't want to give my mind away. I'm afraid of giving my mind away. But anyway, I did the math. 4,380 days of bleeding. And you guys can't appreciate this as much because you're not females.
Yeah.
But that's torturous. I would have wanted to kill myself if I had bled for 4,380 days. And I don't say that lightly, seriously. But yet this woman in this crowd, for her to have touched him, she had to have touched other people. There was no way that she was going to get through that whole crowd and just
so she didn't care about the ceremonial law. She's just like, I'm getting through.
Well, and not just that. So when Jesus stops and makes this whole point to recognize her, it is 100% for her, but it's also for the people that were present, that for them to now realize, oh, she's clean.
Yeah.
We're good.
Yeah. It's interesting too. I was thinking about like how you do see the heart of God and the intentionality of God. And I know why, like kind of what you're saying, it was 100% for her. You said the phrase, Christ only goes where he's wanted. Yeah. Which I understand why people would push back on that. And I think there could be, depending on what you mean by those statements, there could be a fair pushback. Yeah,
that's right.
Because we do see a lot of humanism infiltrate the church, and then we try to flip God, and instead of us being made in God's image, we try to make God in our image, and there's some real danger with that.
God's not sitting around twiddling his thumbs, waiting on us to do something so he can finally get involved in the world.
Yeah, he is the main character, but it's like there's a documentary that came out a few years ago, and I didn't see the documentary, but I saw the trailer, and it was like two opposing views, right? And one was right, one was wrong. It actually ties into the text today because I wanted to talk about a little bit about the prosperity gospel too. But one guy says the gospel is not a revelation of your sin; it's a revelation of your worth. And then the counter to that was the gospel's not about you. And it's like, and the point they were making is like that's a humanistic, human-centered gospel when you make it all. No, it is a revelation of your sin, and I would say it is, but the gospel is kind of about us, right? I mean, I don't know how you separate humanity from the gospel.
God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten
so
son.
I think it's both and I think that when you work through this, what you do see is the heart of God. He has a heart for people. God doesn't need our praise. I mean, I think we have to remember that. Like, God does not need us to praise him. He's not a narcissist that needs his ego fed. God is God whether he created us or not. He is eternally God. Like, he is the eternal supreme being of all reality. He does not need us to praise him. The Bible says he is not served by human hands as if he needed anything. He gives all men life and breath. I mean, that's what Paul said in Acts 17. Yeah. But he also says that he's sovereign and that he determined the exact times and places that every person should live so that they would seek him out and perhaps find him, though he's not far from each one of us. But we are not to view him as like gold or silver or some kind of statue, because we're his offspring. It's relational. By him we cry, Abba, Father. Romans chapter 8. We don't have a spirit of fear or timidity, but a spirit of sonship, and by him we cry, Abba, Father. And you see that heart right here as God's interacting with this woman who's been bleeding for 12 years as he's going in to meet a 12-year-old girl, by the way, who's on her deathbed.
Yeah, maybe the better way to say it is where faith exists, God moves. Yeah, that might be the better way to say this, because right here at the center of the passage is this really funny moment. Jesus, perceiving in himself that power had gone out from him, immediately turned to the crowd and said, "Who touched my garments?" It's like this, like he's just walking around and like zoom, like this thing pops out of him, and he's like, "Wait, where did that go?" I mean, who believed and allowed the power that exists in me to bring healing to then be poured out onto them?
That's a great point. The framework for that, probably the cascade for that, is Romans 5. I think it makes your point. Romans 5, 1 and 2, mainly verse 2. Let me read it real quick. Because faith is the entry point into presence. Yeah. Like, you have to go through faith. That's kind of the whole point of Paul's writings, right? And so then you think, well, I want God's grace. How do I get that grace? Well, you get there through faith. It's not the other way around, according to Paul. It's not grace and then faith. It's actually faith and then grace. Listen to how Paul says it. Therefore, since we have been justified by faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ. Through him, we have also obtained access by faith into this grace in which we now stand. So the way you get into the grace, according to the Apostle Paul, is by faith. So if I'm going to get into the state of Florida for vacation, well, I'm going to get there by a car. So what is the vehicle that you got to get into the state of Florida? It's the van outside. In the same way, if I'm going to a state of grace, I'm going to get there by the vehicle of faith. And I think that's what this is what Jesus is unpacking here in our text in Mark chapter 6 or chapter 5, excuse me.
Well, I also feel like it mirrors Genesis too. Whenever Adam, when he stops and he says, "Who touched me?" It reminds me of when Jesus says, "Where are you?" Yeah. Talking of Adam and Eve. And when I think about faith and what it is, I believe the beginning of faith is allowing yourself to be known by the Creator. And so this woman, he says, "Who touched me?" And then it says she told him everything and then fell at his feet. Adam and Eve, where are you? Adam comes out from hiding. He tells them everything. And then God, of course, clothes him with a better skin. God, of course, clothes her with cleanliness. I think there is something to this idea of us, growing in faith as we allow ourselves to be known by the Father in our uncleanliness, in our shortcomings, whatever they may be. I just feel like there's a parallel there. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, this lady came to an end of herself. She had suffered for 12 years. When you read this passage, it's interesting. The Greek phrasing is, she suffered much and many physicians. She spent all her wealth and gained nothing. So much and many and all were her attempts. And the fruit of her labor was nothing. she gained nothing from it. She tried.
She got worse.
Yeah, she got worse. Yeah. And she was in a worse spot. She had no money. Science of the day couldn't help her. The religion of the day trying to keep her ceremonial clean. Like she ended up having to throw that off to pursue not science, not religion, but a person. And so it was in the very emptying of herself that she then found what she needed all along.
Yeah, because the question is, if you read this, he says, your faith has healed you, right? And so where I think this gets hairy is that then you're like, well, okay, I prayed for healing, right? We talked about this in the last podcast. I prayed for healing and I wasn't healed. I prayed for my mother to be cured of dementia and she died.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I prayed that prayer. She died. Well, your faith wasn't strong enough. Because if your faith had been strong enough, according to this passage, she would have been healed, because this woman's faith is what healed her. It's really a misunderstanding of the word faith, though, because that takes faith and almost makes it sound like it's like some kind of like magical spell. Like I'm coming in instead of faith is trusting. It's right. It's trusting in the sovereignty of God. It's trusting that God, one, has the sovereign power to do what he said he's going to do, that he actually has the power to accomplish it, and then two, that he has the character to actually do what's good. I mean, that is really what faith is. But when you look at the scriptures, you see this passage, but you got to also look at Hebrews chapter 11, because all those men, that's the hall of faith.
Yeah.
Every one of those men and women mentioned in Hebrews 11 were heroes and titans of the faith. And the Hebrew writer says they did not receive the promise because they won't receive it until they receive it with us. They all died. And some of those people, man, can you think about the ones that were sewn up into animal skins and they were fed to the wolves, and I mean, they were sawed in two. I mean, like the picture of Hebrews 11.
Can I just read that scripture real quick, because I have it? I think that's so good. These all died in faith, not having received the things promised, but having seen them and greeted them from afar, and having acknowledged that they were strangers and exiles on the earth. For people who speak thus make it clear that they are seeking a homeland. If they had been thinking of that land from which they had gone out, they would have had the opportunity to return. But as it is, they desire a better country, that is a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared for them a city.
That's right. And Jairus is the picture of that right here in this passage. His daughter, I imagine he's like, Jesus, I came to you. I did, like you say, come to you and I'll hear you. And I came and you waited, and now my daughter's dead. You didn't do the thing you promised you would do. And what Jesus is showing is like, because you're thinking way too small.
Yeah.
I'm much bigger than all the, I'm not about the country and the land that you came from.
Yeah.
I have something far bigger and far better. And the reality is the daughter that Jesus raised from the dead lays in a grave right now, because the hope wasn't simply getting over an illness. It was about an eternal home with our Father.
That's such a good point. And when you think about even the way Jesus responded, what are you talking about? She's asleep. I mean, the sarcasm of Christ is like, guys, in my world, she's asleep.
Yeah, pastoring 101 is you don't make that joke when someone's daughter dies.
No.
Like that's like the first rule.
Your daughter, she's asleep.
No, she's sleeping.
But it is.
You see that too, just this idea that he's always offering more than we even think to ask in the healing of the woman that was bleeding, because the first thing he says to her after she tells him what happened is he says, daughter. He calls her daughter. He gives her an inheritance of something that's right. Eternal.
Well, I think this is a really key point that we're talking about here, that when you think about your own, like the way that you view your relationship with Christ, we talked about it in the last episode about the authority that we try to take that's his. If we really believe that, then why does every single person that is healed, why do they all end up sick and dead in the end? Like think about that. Like your point, she is that little 12-year-old girl is in a grave. I mean, her body's dust right now. Like what happened? Right. I think that because the gospel is a gospel of prosperity. I mean, I think we would all agree to that, but that's not the same thing as the prosperity gospel. I think when this gets really off is when you take these things that are happening right here, these were signposts of the kingdom, and you take the signpost and you bow down and you worship the signpost. This is the whole point of this podcast. It's the already, not yet, now. It's not yet now. It's a kingdom that's here, but not yet fully realized. You're seeing this inaugurated eschatology right here in the text, because Jesus is, yes, there's an immediate healing, but it's not the ultimate point. So you can turn to a Hebrew, and it's all centered around this word faith. All of it is. To the point we said in Hebrews 11 about the hall of faith and all those people that died. Abraham's one of the ones that's mentioned the most in there. But you know that whole passage in Hebrews 11, you know how it starts? With this right here, a description and a definition of what faith actually is. Now, faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. That's what it is. It's the conviction of what's not seen. And so when he goes through and he gives all of these examples of people like Moses and Abraham and Isaac and all these patriarchs and matriarchs of the faith, what he's painting is a picture of what faith looks like.
Yes.
And I love the part where and I've said this, we've talked about this on the podcast before, but when he talks about Abraham, when he offered up Isaac, he clearly says that Abraham thought that he was going to raise him from the dead. That's not what God did. So Abraham actually got it wrong, but got it right.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing here. This woman and Jairus, they have no idea how Christ is going to do what he said he was going to. I don't think they knew that they even know he was the Son of God yet. I mean, they're just like, we don't know anything. We know there's something there.
Yeah.
I got to touch that guy. If I could just touch the hem of the garment, there's enough power in that person, the person of Jesus, that if I could just skim and graze the hem of his garment, that I can be healed.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think you read from Hebrews 11, Hebrews 12 says, looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith. And I think it's important to see the difference between the faith of Jesus and faith in Jesus. So the faith which Jesus displayed as he walked through on this earth was perfect. He showed us what it perfectly looks like to live a life fully trusting in the presence and the power and the word of God. He never faltered. He never disobeyed. He was fully dependent on God. And then we see the fruit of that life, someone fully filled with the Spirit doing all of these things. Okay, we can get in on a little bit of that, but what the call of the New Testament is not simply to have the faith of Jesus. That's just a burden that we can't carry.
Yeah.
I mean, that just puts another thing on us that we're now we don't just have to keep the law. We actually have to be as faithful as Jesus. But that's not the call of Paul.
Yeah.
That's not the call of the New Testament. It's to have faith in Jesus,
Yeah.
who is the author and who is the perfecter of our faith. And when we do that, what we begin to see is we see Jesus as the gift and the goal of salvation.
I love that. And I think the reason why we have to see it that way, and I think it's one of the main points of Mark chapter 5, but I mean, particularly this part, is that this Christ that we put our hope and faith in, he's coming into two types of scenarios with unclean people. That the reason why he was not allowed to touch them is because they were unclean, and if they touch him, then what would he become? Unclean. But that's not how it works with a God who is life. So think about this. He comes in and touches the unclean where he should become clean, but that's not what happens. Instead of the unclean making the clean unclean, the clean makes the unclean clean. That is the way of Christ. He is life. And so he's imparting life everywhere he goes. And I think that's the big signpost, here of what we're called to look at. So I think if you're like, man, I just want to think pastoral here. How would you, Brandon, Jill, how would you respond to somebody who was really struggling with, I said these prayers and I'm feeling like my faith is not strong enough, and that's why God's not answered them?
Yeah, I think a few years ago, I would have spouted off a bunch of intellectual arguments first about, well, this is what you still believe and this is what you should do. And I would go there first. But now I would just first sit into it with them and just say, what you're feeling is actually right. Like, you should be frustrated that your daughter's not healed. Like, you should be grieved that the world's not the way that it's supposed to be. Like, that's actually the nature of God in us, is craving the way things were back before the fall and the way that things will be. So that, like, that brokenness and that deep desire is actually a good thing, as paradoxical as that sounds, because it shows us there is something better. And then the hope through that is that God has made a way. God has made a way. So we're gonna plead with God for healing right here, right now, because disease is not the way that things should be. We should be healthy, and death is not the way that things should be. Life is. I literally just got a text while we're doing this. My dad ended up in the hospital last night at 4 a.m. They thought it was a heart attack. Apparently it's not as serious, but it's still like, that's not normal. Like that grieves me, and that's not the way it should be.
Yeah.
And so we're going to plead with the Father, who has shown through the Son his exact nature, that he wants to heal, he wants to bring life, he wants to bring healing. So we're going to plead with that. That's the already. But the not yet is that one day every tear is going to be wiped away. Every disease is going to be healed. Every death is going to be brought back to life. And we're going to live perfectly in the presence of God, where all of that pain and the darkness and the sickness no longer exist. And ultimately, that's our hope, is in who God is and him inviting us to himself. And all of the stuff along the way are just signposts getting us there.
Jill, what about you?
I don't really know how to follow that. That's pretty good. That what he said. But no, I was thinking about just different people over the course of the last couple of years that I have ministered to in this space of one girl just in deep depression, crying, why will God not take this away? Another, a terrible miscarriage. Just these instances are coming to my mind. And I remember saying this to you. I feel ill-equipped. I don't know. And that is literally what I said. I don't know why God is not taking this away from me. I don't know why this happened at this time. I don't know why this life didn't come to be. There is so much that I don't know. And I think for so many years, I felt like I had to have an answer for the things of this world. And I don't have that viewpoint. I don't have the viewpoint of God. I think of Job. That is a hard book to read, and I think of his friends, and they're constantly like, oh, if you just had enough faith, if you this, if you that. And you fast forward Job, and God does redeem Job's life here on this earth, but there was still so much pain that he went through. There was still loss. He still lost all of his children. And so I don't have the answer for why some get healed and why some don't. I don't have God's viewpoint, but what I do have and what I can testify to is that God is a God that is on the path to redeem every brokenness, everything that is not set right in this world. It will be redeemed. And I have seen many of those things redeemed in this life, in other people's lives, and in my own life, enough so that I do have an assurance and a conviction. I'm not closing my eyes and crossing my fingers and hoping. I just hope God's real. I hope this Bible is true. There may have been a time in my life where I had that fear, but no, I have seen the works of God. And so I can testify that he's good. But the details and the why some, I don't know.
Well, we don't know. Well, Abraham didn't know. He didn't know. He didn't fully understand what God was doing on Mount Moriah whenever he sacrificed or had planned to sacrifice Isaac. And think about Abraham. I mean, I guess he realizes it now, but I mean, he didn't understand what that promise meant. Even his understanding of the promise was so small compared to what it actually was. He had no concept of how big God's promise was in Genesis chapter 12. He could have never considered what this actually meant, and that we would be sitting here part of Abraham's children.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and I think of that scripture that we were never promised that we were going to have an easy life.
Yeah.
In this life, you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world.
Well, yeah, and I'll end with this because we got to bounce here. We're out of time, but I'll end with this. Hebrews chapter 12, because you mentioned it, of Jesus being the author that we fix our eyes on, the founder, the perfecter of our faith. The rest of that verse says, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. So Jesus endured a lot of suffering. Why? For the joy set before him. That is the not yet. And so we, in the same way, for the joy that's set before us, we endure our own cross, right? Because we're looking to that day that Christ will come back. So yes, do we believe the kingdom is here? Absolutely. I hope we made that abundantly clear. But do we believe that the kingdom is fully here? No. We are waiting the second coming of Christ. I know someone busted me on the podcast for that, but I don't know how you get away from it. This God is coming back to redeem his people, to resurrect the dead, that we will have new bodies, new heaven, and a new earth, and we will be in total peace and communion with the God that made us. We'll return back to our original position.